Welcome to this special edition of Score Talk, where we discuss the hidden gems in the world of film music. I'm Zev Burrows, coming to you from New York City.
And I'm Miriam Sternlicht, coming to you from London, UK.
And it's Oscar month. It's Oscar month. It's Oscar month. I
Clearly,
guess
Zeb is very beside himself
I
with the
guess that
fact that it's Oscar month.
I guess that works better if it's Broadway, right? Because I mean, I've heard it done in for Broadway, like it's opening night, and I just
Yeah, yeah,
try to
yeah.
do a similar thing,
I
and
hope
I
you're
don't know.
dancing as well. Do you have your
Uh,
Do you have your tap shoes on?
me watching me dance is like watching Elaine Bennis dance, so
Oh
none of
dear.
that.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right
If you
then.
if you've all seen that episode of Seinfeld,
Oh,
um,
another Seinfeld fan. Right.
got it, got it. So, yeah. So, first, congratulations to our five composer nominees: Ludwig Göransson, Terence Blanchard, Nicholas Britell, Alexander Desplat, and Mark Shaman,
Hmm.
for all of their wonderful work this year, going into the five Best Original Score nominees.
Yes, yes. Big congratulations. I've only heard two or three out of those. I'm a big stickler for watching the movie before put my hands on the score.
I am too.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like listening to a score before seeing the movie really takes it out of context. But once
Mhm.
you've seen the movie and you want to listen to the score on its own, that's perfectly acceptable, right?
I mean, I think both circumstances are acceptable.
Well,
It's just,
I know, I'm
oh,
being facetious.
right. Um, before we get started, any predictions on what you think will take home the big prize?
It's kind of hard to say having not seen them all. Um, there's a part of me that wants to go with Ludwig
Mm-hmm.
because I think he brought something really special to the Marvel universe.
Mm-hmm.
And he's young, and he really, I mean, I saw an interview, a couple of interviews with him when he talks about the effort that he put into the school. He actually traveled to Africa. He really learnt their craft there. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something special that not everybody does. So, kind of wanted to go
Right.
to him. He's new and innovative, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I think it probably will go to Ludwig. I don't think there's going to be a big surprise if he wins. I think the biggest, I don't know what would be the biggest surprise of the nominees. I'm not going to say of what would win. I'm just saying, yeah, I think I haven't seen all the movies yet. I've seen three of the nominees, and but I think Ludwig right now has the best chance of winning of the
yeah.
five nominees.
I think that a
But
lot of people would support that choice.
mhm.
Yeah.
but so for this poll, we picked past scores from all of our nominees,
Hmm.
and if we could, we singled out past works that they did with their specific directors. So, and then one score that was shortlisted for this year, but wasn't picked. And sure enough, people went with the one that didn't get nominated.
Yeah, but I kind of feel like that's fair in a way because the other five are going to get a massive spotlight now, what with the
Hmm.
Oscars and all. So yeah, that seems okay to me.
Hmm.
I'm quite excited to talk about Ryan Tyler's work. I feel like he's not spoken about enough, and he's got plenty to say with his music. So
Sure.
I saw him live at the end of 2018. I saw him live here in London at the Royal Festival Hall,
Hmm.
and it was spectacular. He
He got
has
up and
a tremendous amount of energy.
he got up and played the drums, didn't he?
He not only did he get up and play the drums, he for the encore, which was actually a cue from Crazy Rich Asians, the movie and score that we are going to discuss today. He started off with conduct. He started off with a guitar solo, I think. Then
Hmm.
he got up to conduct. Then he ran to the drums, did a drum solo, and then he ran to the piano, did a little piano jazzy bit, and then went back to
Uh-huh.
conducting again. He was on fire.
Uh-huh.
I think there are a number of other GCN members who were there and would
Hmm.
attest to that as well. They'd say the same thing. It really was something special. Um, he's got a
Right.
lot of character, and his work also is oozing with character. And Crazy Rich Asians was a nice step in a different direction for him.
Mm-hmm.
So we can talk about that a little bit. I found that he got to flex his muscles a bit with this one. He's been writing so many action cues and action scores lately. What
Right.
with all the Marvel movies he's done, and then the Fast and
Fast.
Furious
Mm-hmm.
franchise, and now You See Me as well. Those two movies were very fast-paced action type scores. And
Mm-hmm.
here he got to write something much more lush and romantic. He infused it with some jazz as well. As you know, that texting scene was just great.
Right.
Um,
His
that
his big his big band arrangements. I'm so jealous of those. And anytime I hear a great big band arrangement, I'm sold. And
Yeah.
it's probably because it's one of the genres and one of the palettes that I haven't really tackled,
Uh-huh.
and that I'm a little intimidated by. I'm a little intimidated by big band, but he just did it in a way that it just worked so well with the picture, and it went smooth and right along. It just upped the drama and kind of, it's funny how drama runs in the family so fast, and it just gets around to everybody. And I think Big Band was such a perfect choice for that. And
Mm.
it just, like I said, just works incredibly well with the picture. And I think for me, his big band stuff and his early sort of cues that are much bigger, um, they're much more memorable to me than some of the lush romantic stuff that he does.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was listening to the love theme a little earlier, and
Mm-hmm.
the love theme is nice, but and I remember when I was watching the movie, I said, where's the grand melody esque? I was waiting for that, Alan Silvestri type of melody, because this is the type of movie, I think I mentioned this. This is the type of movie that Alan Silvestri
Mm-hmm.
excelled at doing
Mm-hmm.
in the 90s. He wrote these big, lush, big, memorable themes,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the and multiple ones for different movies. I'm singling out right now the Father of the Bride movies
Right.
and the remake of The Parent Trap, which, yes, I like that movie a lot, and no shame, but it
I
has
also love
what
it. I haven't seen
it,
it for
it
a while.
it's a good movie, and he just wrote some big, marvelous melodies for it, and they're just so catchy. And I was just waiting for something that catchy coming to come from this movie, and I don't know, I didn't get it.
Do you think it was necessary?
I think in the romantic comedy, if you're going for a romantic comedy, it is most of the time necessary. I
I don't
don't.
know. I'll tell you why. Again, I'm doing this whole the symbolism type thing, but
Mhm.
like the characters and the decor and the whole ambience of the movie was so ostentatious that maybe that was a conscious choice, maybe to keep the love that theme that runs through the movie, keep it subtle, keep it like a mellow and don't let it take away. We didn't need something another character to add to the movie. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I quite enjoyed that theme that he ran through the movie was just sort of peppered throughout and in a very sort of understated way. I don't know,
It was
maybe
it wasn't overbearing.
exactly
That
it wasn't overbearing, and we had enough overbearingness,
hmm
so maybe it was a conscious choice.
hmm Maybe I have no idea. But why don't we play that love theme?
Yes, definitely. Let's. That's a gorgeous
So.
cue.
So I think one of the big things of this movie is being the first film by a major Hollywood studio to feature a majority Asian American cast
Yes.
in a modern setting since The Joy Luck Club from 1993. I haven't seen The Joy Luck Club. I know
Wasn't that scored by Rachel Portman?
it was.
Yeah.
So it's definitely one that we should all check out.
It's apparently a big deal. I've read in a couple of places that's
Yeah, I think the joy. I think it got. Did it get a couple of Oscar nominations?
no. Just also the fact that that this cast was purely Asian American. I think this
Mhm.
is something that people have really sat up and paid attention to.
Right, and the standout for me in the cast was Michelle Yeoh. I
Hmm.
doubt
The
I'm
mother,
pronouncing.
Eleanor.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Who most of us know probably best from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. She played one of the lovers in Crouching Tiger, and that is to date one of the best martial arts movies I've ever seen.
Uh-huh.
And she plays another character entirely here, and she sells the sort of overbearing mother so brilliantly.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's done really
as
elegantly. It's not like one of
it
those.
is it is
Yeah.
done very elegantly, and
Mm.
it's done. She almost plays this snake-like character,
Mm.
which and she sells it completely. I was watching her performance and watching her eyes, and just when she's on the screen, she controls it entirely. It's the Michelle show when she's on screen.
Totally.
um,
She has a presence. Yeah.
oh yeah, oh yeah. So
Hmm.
that was for me the standout performance in that movie. But I don't know. I was also very taken in with Constance Wu as Rachel, the main character, and this sort of sense of casting out Asian Americans in favor of all Asians. It was interesting to me, and I don't
I
know that
don't
I've
know
ever
so
seen that.
much that it was the fact that she was American, Asian American. I think it was
Right,
more to do with her pedigree. Uh, is the fact that her mother was a single mother and there was a bit of a scandal there.
right, right. That was
Um,
that was that was very interesting to me, and I also really enjoyed Aquafina as her basically best friend.
she was great.
Um, the big problem I had with the movie though was number one, it's too long. It's 2 hours, and it doesn't fill those 2 hours. It's not a completely satisfying 2 hours.
I would
And
agree
to
with
me,
you. Yeah.
there's too many different plots. There's the affair with Nick's cousin's husband is having an
Astrid and
affair.
her husband. Uh huh.
Astrid, right, right. And then there's the wedding of somebody else, which none of that really. We don't really care as much about that as we do the personal plight of the story of Rachel and Nick, which should be
Mm.
which should be the heart of the movie, and at times it kind of gets cast aside for these other storylines, and that you don't see that often in romantic comedies, and that felt a little odd
Remind
to
me if you
me.
can. Who directed this movie again?
It's a guy called John M. Chu,
That's right.
and
And
his
do you
his
know
past
any?
credits
Yeah, his past
his
credits.
his past credits include two of the Step Up movies,
Oh,
and
interesting.
or multiple Step Up movies, and Now You See Me two. Past collaborator with Brian Tyler, and he is also set to direct the film adaptation of In the Heights, which was Lin-Manuel Miranda's musical before Hamilton. So,
Hmm. I see.
but
I
he's
think
got.
he tried very hard to stay true to the book.
Uh-huh. I haven't read the book, so did you read it?
No, but that's what I've read is that he was quite he did a very good job of being faithful to the book. Yeah, so interesting. It did have a long run time, I agree. I
Hmm.
think it was quite refreshing to have a rom-com. I hate calling it that. I'm going to call it romantic comedy in today in our times. It was just a nice little chance to escape all the stuff that goes on in the world around us.
Right, because
And
the
also,
rom
mm,
because the rom-com's basically been dead for
it has,
almost
it has.
since maybe the end of the 90s.
Yeah, and
Um,
and so many movies today are being released about politics and a lot of action movies, lots of superhero movies. We haven't had a decent romantic comedy to just bite into
right,
for a while.
right. It's been a long time, and the kinds of romantic comedies that we do see that often have come out in the last decade or so, or the last decade and a half, of these quirky indie romantic comedies where, with I think one example is something like 500 Days of Summer with
Mm.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt
And
and
Zooey Deschanel.
with
Oh,
Zoe Deschanel,
I call it Zooey.
which people have been trying to replicate and trying to ape for about 10 years, and seeing a movie like Crazy Rich Asians with lavish production design and these
It
full-fledged
was a treat for the eyes. Oh, it was.
it was a big treat for the eyes. This movie was so beautiful to look
Mm.
at. I just I and Hollywood is kind of just afraid of making movies like these, and I think with everyone's obsession, and people, I think our age group and now our age are so obsessed with being quirky, you know, and I kind of hate that. If someone tells me that they're quirky, I don't believe them for a second.
No, you can't call yourself quirky. It's something that somebody else has to label you.
Exactly.
Totally.
So,
Totally.
but I hope that we get more movies like Crazy Rich Asians. I hope we get more romantic comedies, because they are, as much as I love my art house movies,
Mm-hmm.
as much as
Mm-hmm.
I love my Bergman, as much as I love my Kieslowski, Kurosawa, I have my soft spot for a good romantic comedy. So,
Yeah, we all do, I think. I think we like to
mhm,
indulge in that sometimes from time to time. I quite like this idea, you know, I don't, at the risk of sounding pretentious maybe, I'm
mhm.
interested in seeing what goes on in a family sense in other cultures. I found this really intriguing because,
It
you
was.
know, sorry?
It was.
Yeah, I like this idea of family and how things get around really fast between family and friends with the use of social media and WhatsApps and all that kind of stuff. I laughed at that because that's totally indicative of what happens in my family, and I'm pretty sure yours as well. I
Oh
think of
yeah,
these
they're
close
they're
knit, also
they're
religious or
they're
semi religious
inseparable.
families as well. It's like everybody's on top of
Mhm,
one another all the time, wanting to know
mhm.
what's going on. This I found this interesting. I'd love to see more of that. I know each culture has their own version of it.
Right.
I'm sure in India they're very family oriented. It would be so interesting to see that on screen.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so I hope that Hollywood will be a bit more culturally aware and open
Mhm.
to ideas from other cultures as well, because
Of course.
it's quite
I think
refreshing.
I think that's starting to take place. I don't think it's quite there where a lot of people have been asking for it yet, but I can see it. But I think it's starting to happen right now.
Yes,
So I think this is just the beginning. So so we were talking a little bit about the big band.
yes, which is the
Um,
next track actually on the soundtrack.
right. So should we play that?
Let's play it. Yeah, and then I'm going to ask you about the rest of the score. I think because it's quite difficult with the rest of the score. It's
Mhm.
a lot of it's a lot of going back to the main love theme and getting variations here and variations there. So, all right,
Right.
here's the texting swing. So, Zeb, were there any other big moments for you in the score? Anything that stood out?
There's a lot of source music. The source music stood out to me quite a bit more than more than the score, honestly. And I'm reading about this the actual soundtrack right now. Apparently, the director and the music supervisor got together and they assembled hundreds of songs about money, and then they wanted to create a multilingual soundtrack and
Hmm.
looked for popular songs that were covers in Mandarin Chinese. So
Oh,
that was really interesting. And the most notable was the last song of the movie, Chinese cover of Coldplay's Yellow,
I
which
actually have that soundtrack, by the way.
the crazy this movie soundtrack.
The movie's it's not just the score. I actually have the soundtrack of all the songs, so maybe we can include one at the end.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, I think, but the use of source music and was the most interesting to me. And in the film's wedding scene, they actually used a cover of Elvis "Can't Help Falling in Love," which was interesting. But overall, I found the use of the source music more interesting than the actual score itself. But
Hmm.
what did you think?
I feel like I ought to listen to the score again because I only did watch the movie once, and
Mhm.
I have listened to the score a sprinkling of times, but I tend to go for my favorite tracks, which
Right.
obviously is the first two. It's the love theme and then the texting swing. I do recall that when I watched it, I felt like, okay, so this scene has just got another sort of variation of the love theme, and here we have a bit of the big band theme again, and maybe I would have liked to have seen a bit more variety. I felt it got pretty safe at times.
What do you mean by pretty safe?
It got safe as in it just kept referring back to its main two tracks. It never really felt like it never
Developed?
introduced, it never developed, and it didn't introduce any majorly new themes after the love theme and the texting swing theme.
Right.
Um, I do recall enjoying the the source music as well, which is actually why I went and got it. Just like a totally different sound in Mandarin, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I enjoyed that. I actually will include something at the end.
Hmm.
But kind of I'm happy that Brian Tyler had the chance to
To flex his muscles.
spread his wings a little bit with this,
Right.
and
Uh,
get out of that action. I don't want to say rut because clearly he enjoys it, otherwise he wouldn't take on those projects. But it
mhm,
was nice to see a different side of him. I think if
mhm,
he's given more opportunities like this, we're going to see amazing things because I
mhm.
think he's the kind of composer that just gives it. Well, he does give it his 100%. You see that in his work.
Of course.
I think I've noticed when I listen to some of his action soundtracks, he does revisit themes even between movies. He does do it. There's a lot of themes that I would say, oh, that's similar to I don't know, Iron Man, or
Hmm.
I'm sure I heard that in Fast and Furious 5 or 6 or something.
However
But
many movies there have been of those, I
goodness
can't
me,
keep.
did he
I
score all
can't.
of them?
No, I'm pretty sure Lucas Vidal did at least one. Um,
Okay.
I can't keep track of all of them.
Well, I don't know. I was listening also to what was it recently? I think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the theme from that, and I thought, okay,
Hmm.
I've definitely heard that somewhere else. Brian Tyler, what have you done? But you know what? I mean, his Formula One theme. This is how I get my kids out of bed every morning.
Gotcha.
I walk into the studio. I turn that up really loud. So I get my laziest kid. I get him out of bed the first. My Benny. He likes
Hmm.
to take his time in the morning. They're besotted with it. So I mean, he's done some pretty awesome stuff. He did the
Hmm.
Mummy. He did the Power Rangers, which is a beautiful, beautiful theme. I love it.
Hmm. He's
Um,
done. He worked on Age of Ultron with Danny Elfman.
yes, that's true. Did they do it
Uh-huh.
together? I wasn't aware of that.
As far as I know, Elfman's credit is doing additional music,
Ah, I see.
but
Okay.
I think the majority of the score
Who asked
was
Danny
Brian
Elfman
Tyler.
to do additional music? This is the first time I've heard of that.
I don't know if additional music is on the credits. It says on the
Okay.
soundtrack it says music by Brian Tyler and Danny
I
Elfman,
see.
but
I see.
I'm pretty sure actually I'm looking at the soundtrack right now. There's a pretty almost even split. It's almost like 65-35 I think the majority
I
of the score
actually,
was Brian Tyler.
I don't have that score. Why was I convinced that Silvestri did that one? Okay,
It's like I
no.
think it's like the one Avengers score that Silvestri didn't do.
Ah, maybe that's what it was. He
So,
also did Thor, The Dark World,
mhm,
the second Thor movie.
right,
He's done a lot of stuff. I'm looking,
yeah,
I'm going out. Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, did a few games as well. Amazing.
right.
He's had a pretty rich and varied career so far. I would like to see him do more romantic comedies. I think this is going to bring out a really soft side of him that we haven't seen much of yet.
Right.
Although he did score the greatest game ever played, and that's got some beautiful string arrangements. I'm pretty sure I sent you a clip of that once.
Did you? I don't remember
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
that.
I'm pretty
The
sure I did.
greatest, the greatest game ever played. Huh. Let me look that up.
Da, da, da. Oh no, that's how I'm singing Crazy Rich Asians again. No, it's really similar actually. I just realized.
Music composed by Brian Tyler. Huh. Um, Getting back to Crazy Rich Asians.
Hmm.
So, shall we? I think you're right. It could be the start of the beginning of a new side of Brian Tyler that we haven't seen before. I was disappointed more in just his romantic side. I'm as I said, I'm much more impressed with his big epic statements. Whether it be the double bass drums in Fast and the Furious or the big band arrangement here, I'm less impressed with his melody writing. Because even while I was listening to the love theme, I'm thinking, God, if only Alan Silvestri had scored this, you know.
I
So
know, but I think Alan Silvestri, yeah, okay, he's something else, but maybe it's time to make room for some new talent to fill that space and let them
sure.
grow into it because
Let
it's not going to happen immediately. It's maybe for some it will, but with Brian Tyler, I mean, this is his first real shot at a romantic comedy like this, and
mhm.
I think for a first time he did do a pretty good job.
Yeah.
He did
Oh
do a
no,
pretty good job.
it served the movie. I'm just and you know it supported the movie well. I'm just saying I wanted something a little more. I guess I wanted something a little catchier from my in. I guess I like catchy in romantic comedy.
Right. Okay.
But that's pretty much all the thoughts I have. I think I'm looking at some of the other Oscar shortlisted scores. Um, I think I don't know if it should have been shortlisted or not. What do you think?
This movie, this
Yeah,
score.
for the score, yeah.
Um, First of all, to be honest, I didn't actually know it was shortlisted. Okay, I'm
Hmm.
going to embarrass myself when I say that, but I just picked a score that I thought didn't get the attention it deserved, and maybe we should discuss it and put it on the same poll as the other Oscar nominees. Now, having
Hmm.
said that, apparently, since I didn't know, obviously I do feel like it should have got this attention.
Hmm.
Maybe it's fair to say that it didn't quite measure up to the other five nominees, but
Hmm.
and I know you kind of have to just be looking at the work in particular, the work in question at the time of picking the nominees.
Right.
Um, but considering Brian Tyler and the uh, the volume of his work so far, the fact is, I feel like he deserves to be in the spotlight for a change. I feel like he's been shunned too many times, and maybe this was it. Maybe this was his music that got him noticed of it because it was something completely different. It was a complete departure from anything he's done before. People were
Hmm.
loving this score for a long time after the movie. I'm convinced that
Right.
he deserves.
I know that a lot of people I know that a lot of people wanted Fantastic Beasts nominated. I didn't see
Yes.
Fantastic Beasts because I'm kind of done with Harry Potter at this point. But
Okay.
what did you think of it? What
I
you like
haven't seen it
Fantastic
yet.
Beasts?
I refused to
Okay.
watch the movie before I'd seen the first Fantastic Beasts. And
Got it.
until I got my act together and saw the first one,
Hmm.
so that was that. So I still got to see it.
Right.
But his score for the first one was quite nice. Nothing really struck me as like, oh my gosh, really memorable. Not like some of his other work, like his
Hmm.
work for the Village, and we're talking about James Newton Howard here in case anyone hasn't quite realised who we're talking about. Um, and
Right.
Some of his work in the Hunger Games as well has really stayed with me. Particularly the
Mhm.
cue for Rue's farewell. Oh, that gets me every time. So I don't know. I can't really say much about the second score. I just remember that the first one didn't do that much for me. So who knows?
I
But
remember.
James Newton Howard was just a class act.
I think a lot of people on the forum were probably very upset that this was nominated, and I think this is one of the only years where a score that won the Golden Globe for Best Original Score wasn't nominated at all. We're talking about Justin Hurwitz's First Man.
Yes.
So, and my feeling on that is, again, not having seen First Man yet, my
Mm.
feeling on that is he won the Oscar 2 years ago for La La Land. He doesn't need another
Well, you
Oscar at
have
this
this
point.
theory. Let's just tell our listeners and see what they think. Maybe they have some comments to make. Zev has a
Right.
theory that if you've recently been nominated, or even maybe ever have been nominated for a Best Original Score, or for any Oscar, it could be actor, actress, anything, that they shouldn't really be considered again. I don't know how I feel about
Not
that.
not not nominated. If they've won the Oscar.
Sorry, if they've won the Oscar, my
Right.
apologies. If they've
Right.
won the
Because
Oscar, then it's not necessary for them to be considered for another.
at least not for quite some time. Because if you get an Oscar, unless you make some serious screw up with your career, if you get an Oscar, you kind of don't need another one for a long time. You know, I mean, that could be completely the wrong statement, but I think, if you've won, great. Let somebody else win for once.
I'm not sure
You
how
know,
I feel about that. I still need to think that through.
because the nominees this year, we have two composers who have never been nominated, um, two that have had at least one nomination, and then a composer that's already won two Oscars this decade. So,
Who? Say that
uh,
again. Who had won?
Alexander Desplat.
Of course, of course. He won
So,
for Grand Budapest Hotel.
which is my favorite score in God knows how many
Yes,
years.
and The Shape of Water. Correct. You're right.
Right, right. Let's give a shout out to our nominees on the poll this week, our other nominees.
Okay, let's.
So this week we also had Creed by Ludwig Göransson, his second collaboration with director Ryan Coogler,
Mm-hmm.
their first being Fruitvale Station from 2013, and of course the latest being Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
That was the runner-up to Crazy Rich Asians. The next one was Moonrise Kingdom by Alexander Desplat, his second collaboration with Wes Anderson, the first being Fantastic Mr. Fox, third being Grand Budapest, and the fourth being this year's Isle of Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Moonrise Kingdom, that has a completely gorgeous score. I find his work with Wes Anderson some of the most interesting he's ever done. And just the way he layers, the way he uses unusual instruments. In Moonrise Kingdom, especially, his combination of electronics, the guitars, and the orchestra is really, really fascinating, just layering and repetition. And then we also had Sleepless in Seattle, scored by Mark Shaman, who's up for this year for Mary Poppins Returns.
Mm-hmm.
A Tale of Love and Darkness was also on the poll, the score by Nicholas Bertel, who's nominated this year for second collaboration with Barry Jenkins, If Beale Street Could Talk, after Moonlight. And then our last one was 25th Hour, scored by Terence Blanchard, one of his many collaborations with Spike Lee. And he's gotten his first nomination for Black Klansman this year. So
to wrap up our episode this week, I'd love to pick a song from the soundtrack. Do you have
Sure.
any particular ones in mind, or can I just pick any? And
I think we should go with Yellow, the one that closes the movie, the cover of Yellow.
Yellow is by Catherine Ho. It's number 12 on the soundtrack.
Okay.
All right, Wicked.
That's it for this special episode, and we look forward to unveiling our next poll for you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and as usual, thank you, Zev.
Thank you, Miriam.
Take care. See you.
You too. See you.
我想知道流星能飞多久，它的美丽是否值得去寻求？夜空的花 散落在你身后，幸福了我很久，值得去等候。于是我心狂奔，从黄昏到清晨，不能再承受。情缘坠落在你手中，羽化成黑夜的彩虹，蜕变成月光的清风，成月光的清风。